Hi, welcome back to the Last 60 Best 60. I'm Lourdes, the founder of Illumin Magazine. So I'm just continuing the series of little videos that provide inspiration, motivation, so that we end this year strong and with more tools to really work on our lives. That's a really important thing for me. So today I wanted to talk about one of the habits that is listed as a high performance habit, but regardless of that, it's something that just makes for living our best lives. And that is courage. So in yesterday's video, I was sharing this phrase of life happens for you and not to you, and how we can shift from being a victim to being a leader, a learner, and a legend. And what is required to make that shift, because it's not easy. It's not like you're like, okay, I was just hit by that big situation and trauma or tragedy, I'm just going to get back up. Like, what happens in that moment of, I can learn from this, I can lead from this, I can really turn this around, is courage. Like the courage to just take the next best step. And so what's interesting is that it really requires trust in ourselves. Sometimes there's this in many of the stories, there's like someone around that you start to trust or that believes in you, and so you have courage. But in my experiences, a lot of times, like whether that was in my relationships or the courage to leave a job or the courage to become a yoga teacher, like there was no one else in my life to trust or to tell me to be strong or have courage. It was really just me taking the next best step, really. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that process of having courage. One is we're either getting out of our comfort zone, and really the getting out of our comfort zone, the fear that is associated with that, and the courage that we're trying to garner is that we're leaving the loss of the known. So it's not so much about getting out of our comfort zone, but it's leaving what we know and feel as comfortable and being in this other lane that we're either feeling not ready for or ill-equipped for, but to be in that space of growth. So another area that we use courage to shift and experience is expressing our feelings. So the word courage actually comes from the root word cœur in French, which means heart. And a lot of times the feeling of courage comes from when we're really sharing at a heart level. Like you really don't need courage to run an extra mile physically. Like you need stamina and strength and energy to do that. Like running an extra mile, that's not so much the courage, but it is having conversations that are hard. And that includes telling someone how we really feel. And so that might be love or hurt or even forgiveness, asking for forgiveness. And so those conversations of telling someone about your love for them, a parent, a child, or especially when something has been disrupted, and talking about feelings of love for a person is really, is not easy, and it takes courage. Asking for forgiveness is another conversation that takes a lot of courage, because it's usually acknowledging something that we may have done that was hurtful or that had an effect that we didn't even intend to have. So those conversations are really hard because we're really going into someone's hurt space and trying to repair that from our effort of communicating. And then lastly, a conversation that takes a lot of courage is asking for what you want. And whether that's in a job situation, which is not easy because we always think it's us versus them, and that's always, and everyone is always looking out for themselves in most situations. So that's a hard conversation, is to really ask for what you want. And then also to ask for what you want in a relationship is very, very challenging, because we sometimes don't know if a person is capable of what we need or what we want. And so a lot of times that comes from a place of we're feeling either misunderstood or not understood enough. And that's a really deep heart space. So I just want to acknowledge these areas as we're looking at our lives and working on what's important. What's probably really important to a lot of people are our relationships with significant others, with family, nuclear parents and kids, or even just the people who make up our lives. So I encourage you to dive into these hard conversations in these last days of the year, so that especially as we're entering into the holidays, that we really feel a peace of mind, that we've said what we need to say to people who are important to us, and that we also feel like we've asked for what we need, such that we can really live in a big way, live in a way that we feel supported, that we feel that we're reaching our aspirations and our potential. So continue to dive deep in these last days of 2018. And I'd love any feedback or questions that any of this might bring up. And I so honor you for living an illumined life.